going on, DFS community? Welcome into the Week 5 edition of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is episode number 67 of the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches, where the games are won and lost, to determine the game script and some player outcomes. The show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. And you can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337. And you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. All right, if you're new to this and you're wondering what the heck is the Adjusted Line Play Report, we pit the offensive line and defensive line play against each other to kind of see what's going to go on. If you want a really good example of that, go look at yesterday's recording that I recorded last night for Thursday Night Theory. I kind of go over that and I say, hey, based off of what I see here, it really looks like the pass games for Thursday Night Football are going to be really good. You know, Kirk Cousins a target, Darnell Mooney a target, Drake London a target, the entire Tampa Bay pass attack a target. And let's go see. It's not even halftime yet while I'm recording this on Thursday night. There's still, 29 seconds left of the first half, and we have, let's go look at these stats. Kirk Cousins, 26 pass attempts, 21 completions, 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's in the first half. And Baker Mayfield, 12 completions on 15 attempts, 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2 of those going to Mike Evans. Just absolutely bananas how accurate that is for that particular game. So if you're interested in getting the answers to the test beforehand, this is the show that you want to watch. The Adjusted Line Play Report. We get you right. Make those start-sit decisions for your fantasy team super easy. If you're into DFS, we give you those plays ahead of time so you can build the best DFS lineups. If you're into prop betting, this will let you say, hey, it's really looking like Bijan Robinson's in a tough spot here on Thursday night. I'm going to bet the under on his rushing yards. Currently, he's got 8 yards in the first half rushing, so keep that in mind. If you want to make some money against your teammates and your league mates on fantasy football, or just some random strangers on DFS, or those big corporations like FanDuel and anybody else that's got a sports book, this is the place you want to be to take their money. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go over every single game on the Sunday night slate, starting with the London game, and then we'll get into the main slate for daily fantasy football leagues. And we're starting off, like I said, with this London game. Technically, Minnesota, the home team here. They are 2.5-point favorites there in London with a 40 Vegas game total. Pretty low there. But Minnesota, 21.25 team implied total. The Jets at 18.75. Now we get into some of the stuff. So let's go look at these and kind of see what we got going on. We can see here New York Jets, offensive pass protection number 5. The Minnesota Vikings at defensive pass rush at number 5 as well. Kind of suggestive that Minnesota may be getting after the quarterback in this particular game, which means the Jets are going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Aaron Rodgers is going to have to get that ball out a little bit quicker. Typically, that means a little bit more passes to the running back and more passes to the tight end in those scenarios. I think that continues in this particular situation based off of this. The DVOA, 18 for the Jets, number 1 for Minnesota, so I don't expect the Jets to be very effective when they're passing the ball. Again, that's probably going to be passes to the running back, passes to the tight end. So Tyler Conklin, Breece Hall, probably in line for some pass catches. We got the rookie over there, Braylon Allen, who's doing really well. We could see some targets go his way as well, but really kind of looking like, they get the ball out quick or they don't take sacks there with Aaron Rodgers, but Minnesota does get after the quarterback. I could see that continuing here and them needing to get the ball out a little bit quicker, which could frustrate their offense to an extent, leading to some quicker throws necessary in this particular matchup. In terms of the run blocking, the Jets 28th and 26th in that category. Minnesota number 12 and number 1. So both red categories there for the Jets. Unfortunately for them, Minnesota very good in that end. Number 1 in defensive run DVOA and number 12 in stopping the run. So in that situation, I really expect the Jets to struggle on the ground. That's not very good for Breece Hall. Probably not good for Braylon Allen. Considering the pass game is really, they might be under pressure. Bad matchup there. I expect the Jets offense to struggle in this particular matchup. Keep that in mind if you're playing an island matchup. Minnesota defense, maybe you want to get in a piece or two of that Jets team. Tyler Conklin, a cheap Braylon Allen, Mike Williams, or an Allen Lazard who maybe catch some boundary passes or something underneath. Those are probably going to be the guys that you want in an island game matchup, and the rest of them maybe somewhere else when we look at the Minnesota side. So Minnesota offense, number 8 in offensive pass protection. That's green. Unfortunately for them, Jets number 3 in the defensive pass rush. So they might be under a little bit of duress here, under a little bit of pressure. Going to need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Could be Aaron Jones getting a few more dump offs. We could see the tight ends get a little bit more involved, some underneath passes to the wide receivers there. Minnesota number 6 in offensive pass DVOA, Jets number 12. So Minnesota still could be explosive despite being under pressure here. Obviously, Justin Jefferson there, always in play. But I wanted to highlight the run game. Number 13 and number 17, kind of middle of the pack there for Minnesota in running the ball, but the Jets 30th and 27th in stopping the run. We already saw Aaron Jones maybe getting a bunch of targets in this as they're under pressure a little bit, needing to get the ball out quick, but it also looks like Aaron Jones should be running the ball very effectively. I think that's going to be somebody that you're going to want in your captain spot. Get Sam Darnold in there as well with Justin Jefferson. Fill in some cheap spots with the rest of that, including Minnesota's defense from the looks of it. And that's how I'm going to play an island game matchup like this for the London matchup. Pace is pretty slow here, 13th and 25th for Minnesota, 22nd and 16th for the Jets. Nothing to write home about. Low score total here. Probably most of that going to be Minnesota. If you're a betting person, I would say Minnesota covers that 2.5 point spread in this matchup. Bet the under on the Jets point total, and that's what I would be doing. All right, so that's how it works. If you're new, that's really what we're doing. That's an island game view of what we're going to be doing. And now we're going to get into the DFS slate. All right, number 1 on that DFS slate is Arizona heading into San Francisco. It's got a 49.5 Vegas game total. It's been bet down from, I think, about 51 when it started this week. So on the heavy side of the under for that. We have San Francisco, 7.5 point home favorites, giving them a 28.5 team implied total, which is number 1 on this main slate. Arizona, 21 team implied totals, 14th best on the main slate. I believe that's out of 22 teams. We are including the Sunday Night Football game because FanDuel is also including Sunday Night Football in their main slate. So that number for these team totals and the game weekly rank will include that Sunday Night Football game. Just be aware. All right, Arizona, number 15 in offensive pass protection. San Francisco, number 6. San Francisco should be apply a little bit of pressure to Arizona. It's going to lead to a little bit quicker throws there for Arizona. I wouldn't be shocked to see James Conner with a few receptions in this matchup. They are green here in terms of offensive pass protection, or offensive pass DVOA. That's number 10. Unfortunately, San Francisco number 5. So Arizona may struggle moving the ball via the air in this matchup. They've already been kind of struggling in that department outside of one game. So couldn't even get it done against the lowly Commanders defense last week, which is a little concerning heading into an away game here for San Francisco's defense. Now getting into the run blocking, Arizona number 19, San Francisco 31. But the run DVOA, number 25 for Arizona, San Francisco number 6. Really, when these are flip-flop, this run blocking aspect, if it's positive for the offense, I say they're just going to gain more positive yards than they will be getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. When the DVOAs are flipped, I just say it's not going to be very explosive plays necessarily for the team. So you might see a lot of 3, 4, 5 yard runs from James Conner where you're not getting negative yards. It's not necessarily killing your drives, but it's not as good as what you would expect out of these certain situations, which is why Arizona is ranked 25th and San Francisco is actually really good in those scenarios. So don't be shocked if you see a lot of 2 to 5 yard runs here from James Conner and getting a lot of pass receptions there. In In terms of San Francisco, number 1 in offensive pass protection. Arizona 7th in defensive pass rush, so they are getting home on some sacks, but San Francisco very good at not taking any sacks, so keep that in mind. But they might be under a little bit more pressure than they're otherwise used to. But that pass DVOA, San Francisco number 2, Arizona number 29. Even though they might be under a little bit of duress, I fully expect Brock Purdy to have a good game. The pass catchers should be very explosive here. So that's going to be Kittle, Debo came back, Ayuk. Those guys should be very, very explosive in this particular matchup. Could even be Jawan Jennings if you want a cheap option in DFS that probably isn't going to be super highly rostered. And then on the run blocking side, not as great of a matchup there. San Francisco 25th in run blocking, Arizona 17th. And then run DVOA, San Francisco 19, Arizona 21. It's kind of an even up matchup. I just say studs eat in this scenario. Christian McCaffrey certainly a stud, but we've seen Jordan Mason really take on a pretty good sizable role here and take off with it. So is he really a stud? I don't know, but I think he'll have the ability to overcome this type of matchup and be somewhat successful in his matchup, along with a very explosive pass game. Fully expect San Francisco to dominate in this, and then Arizona kind of struggling on their offensive side to move the ball. So Vegas line 7.5, I think that's a pretty good matchup there. San Francisco plays slow, and then Arizona a little bit below average in terms of pace of play. So a lower Vegas total, I think, is perfectly fine for this particular matchup. Probably part of why it's getting bet down so far. And we have the number 2 game on the slate here. Baltimore heading into Cincinnati. We actually have Baltimore as 2.5-point road favorites with a 49 Vegas game total, second best on the slate, giving Baltimore a 25.75 team implied total. That is the second best on the slate behind San Francisco. And then Cincinnati at 23.25 for their team implied total, 7th best on the main slate. Baltimore offensive pass protection, number 10, number 1 in pass DVOA. How can that be, you say? Their offense pass game has not been that great. Well, that's what these numbers are showing you. Pass protection, they're not taking a ton of sacks. And then in the certain scenarios when they are passing, they're actually being highly successful in those. Cincinnati's defense, 23rd and 26th in these two categories, so they're not getting after the quarterback. There's probably not going to be a lot of sacks here for Lamar. He's probably going to have some time to throw, and then it looks like they're going to be very effective when they are throwing. So I think this is a situation where the pass catchers, Flowers, maybe Andrews actually has a good game in this. I think this could be one of those bounce back matchups for him. And Rashad Bateman, we've seen out on the field quite a bit. He's also in line for a bump up in production this week. The run game for Baltimore also very good. Number 3 in run blocking. Baltimore number 1 in run DVOA. So we see double ones here. Offensive pass DVOA, offensive run DVOA for Baltimore, number 1 in both. Very, very good there. Cincinnati 26th in stopping the run. And 22nd in run DVOA. So this tells me Derrick Henry should also have a very solid game, very effective on the ground. So Baltimore's offense should absolutely dominate in this particular scenario. I fully expect that to happen. Derrick Henry's certainly in play for DFS. You're going to want to start him in every one of your lineups. If you're considering benching Mark Andrews, depending if Cincinnati can keep pace, we haven't seen their offensive play yet, but he is in a situation where it should be good. They have time to throw. He might get a little bit more targeted in this particular matchup. But then again, they could be up huge and just lean on Derrick Henry, and he runs 15 routes and gets you no points. Also within the range of outcomes. On the Cincinnati side, number 30 in offensive pass protection. Baltimore 17 in the pass rush. That's in the favor of Baltimore. They might be able to apply a little bit of pressure here to Joe Burrow, but otherwise he might have a little bit more time than he's otherwise expecting based off of his otherwise terrible line play here. The pass DVOA, Baltimore 7, Cincinnati 11 on offense, slightly in the favor of Baltimore. Nothing to write home about, might be under a little bit of pressure, but studs overcome these DVOA metrics, and Jamar Chase is one of those. If anybody's going to have a big game in this particular matchup, probably going to be Jamar Chase. And then the run blocking, Baltimore number 3 in stopping the run, Cincinnati number 26 in run blocking. But Cincinnati number 3 in run DVOA, Baltimore number 10. So while Cincinnati maybe in a play-by-play basis isn't gaining some chunk yards, they are pretty effective with what they do when they do run the ball. This could be partly due to lots of rushing touchdowns that Cincinnati has actually had this season. So keep that in mind. It might be inflating this number up a little bit. But yeah, it looks like the run game, a play-by-play basis might not be getting a ton of yards, but could be kind of effective depending on the situation that they're in to get that DVOA run number up. But really, all in all, I think Cincinnati probably going to struggle a little bit on offense. We're going to see Baltimore dominate on their end, and it could be interesting there with Derrick Henry, potential slate breaker in this particular matchup. I don't think I have that on my particular thing, but hey, we can do one of those. Very good matchup here for Derrick Henry. If they're going to get out to a lead and Cincinnati's going to struggle, it could be a big Derrick Henry week. All right, third best game on the slate, Green Bay heading into the Rams Stadium. They are 3-point road favorites. And this is a 48.5 Vegas game total, so we've seen it increment down by half of a point here in the first three matchups. Green Bay, 25.75 team implied total. That is the second best on the slate. I believe that was tied with Baltimore. Then Los Angeles Rams, 22.75. That is good for 11th best on the main slate. Green Bay, number 13 in offensive pass protection. The Rams, 26, telling me that the Packers will probably have some time to throw the ball. And fortunately for their offense, they're number 5 in pass DVOA. The Rams, 31st. I fully expect the Packers pass game to eat in this. If you look at the run blocking, they're both green here. Rams right across the board for their defense, so number 28 and 31 in the run blocking or run stopping categories on defense. Green Bay offense should absolutely hum in this. I can see why they're the second ranked one on the main slate. Pass game's going to hum. Run game's going to hum. Wouldn't be shocked to see Josh Jacobs with a few touchdowns in this. Even Emmanuel Wilson could find himself in the end zone. But big Green Bay stacks and DFS I think are going to be very viable. Getting like a Love and a Wicks and a Jacobs I think could go a long way in a matchup like this. The Rams, they are number 19 in offensive pass protection. Green Bay number 8. So Green Bay should be able to apply a little bit of pressure here, causing the ball to need to come out a little bit quicker. It's going to be a little bit better for Jordan Whittington than anybody else for the Rams in a scenario like that. Pass DVOA for Green Bay 20th, Rams 22nd. Studs can overcome that. I don't think the Rams they're fresh out of studs. Kupp's injured and Puka Nakua's injured there. I think their best option if they're going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker is going to be Jordan Whittington. Just FYI, it does seem like Tutu Atwell is the person that ends up getting a lot of the volume in production in this pass play. But if they need to get it out a little bit quicker, don't be shocked if Jordan Whittington has a little bit better game. And then the run attack, heavily in the favor of Green Bay's defense here. Rams number 32 in offensive run blocking, Green Bay number 7 in stopping the run, and then run DVOA for the Rams 15th, Green Bay number 9. Wouldn't expect Kyren Williams to be very effective on the ground, but if they're under a little bit of duress in the pass game, you could see Kyren Williams with a few pass catching roles or opportunities in this particular matchup. Otherwise, it looks like the Rams going to struggle in general. Best bet is probably this pass game. And then Green Bay should really hum, similar to the last game that we saw where Baltimore looks like they should be absolutely dominant. And their opponent, not so well, the home team. That looks very similar here for this Green Bay Rams game. All right, fourth best game total on the main slate. We have Buffalo heading into Houston. Buffalo actually 1-point road favorites here. It's a 47.5 Vegas game total. Again, that is fourth best on the slate. Buffalo 24.25 team implied total, and that is sixth best. Houston, 23.25 team implied total is the seventh best. So predicting a very close game here, which always piques the interest of people in DFS. If it's going to be close and a higher scoring game, back and forth, those are the ones where the entire offenses can get involved and you get a lot of fantasy points. So if you got Buffalo and Houston players, might be pretty juicy here depending on the matchups. Buffalo offense, number 11 in offensive pass protection. Houston, surprisingly, number 1 in defensive pass rush, so getting a lot of sacks There in Houston, the DVOA for passing on offense, Buffalo number 3, Houston 11 on defense. That's in the favor of Buffalo, so they might be under a little bit of pressure, need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Probably going to be more in the favor of Khalil Shakir. Now you need to watch out for his injury progress. He had a bad ankle after last week, trending towards like he's probably going to play, but keep an eye on that. This is Thursday night that I'm recording it. We got till Sunday for any other news to come out, but in the event he plays, he should be targeted pretty heavily, and then Dalton Kincaid, I would expect to get a few targets in this as well as they are under a little bit of duress. In terms of the run game, Buffalo not bad, number 11 and 13 in the run game on offense. Houston, though, number 4 and number 4. So we see Houston's defense actually pretty good here. I'd expect James Cook to struggle a little bit on the ground. Again, he's an option here for the pass rush. If they're getting after the quarterback, we could see James Cook with 5 or 6 receptions in this particular matchup. Seems like they like to target him regardless, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him. I don't know what his receptions line is. I'm assuming it's going to be 3.5. I wouldn't mind hitting the over on 3.5 receptions. Like I said, I fully expect him maybe to get 5 to 6 receptions in this particular matchup. Houston, number 4 in offensive pass protection, Buffalo 13. Houston should have a decent amount of time to throw in this particular matchup. But Buffalo, number 6 in defensive pass DVOA, Houston 16. Indicative that Buffalo might limit the amount of explosive plays that Houston has in their repertoire, but otherwise should have some time to throw, which is always indicative that they could be pretty good in the offensive pass categories, getting the ball out and being successful in that regard. In the run blocking, pretty even up here. Houston number 5 in run blocking, Buffalo number 6 in stopping the run. And then run DVOA in the favor of Buffalo number 13 versus Houston on offense 21. Sounded like on Wednesday, Mixon and Dameon Pierce did not play or did not practice on Wednesday. I didn't see the Thursday reports here. Been busy with social life, helping my neighbor actually do some landscaping duty, but didn't see the practice report, so keep an eye on that. Mixon did practice and was only questionable heading into Sunday night or Sunday's football game last week, so I kind of expect Mixon to play in this game, but it doesn't look like a particularly awesome matchup for him. If otherwise, Cam Akers is playing and those two aren't. He's kind of a void in DFS. He's been cheap and not very productive in their couple of games that they've played with him. So keep that in mind. In terms of the score going back and forth, it does look like Buffalo's going to struggle a little bit in the run game. Maybe need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, but successful in the pass game. Houston should have some time to throw the ball, but struggle a little bit in the run game. I think this is going to be a back and forth, evenly matched game. Might struggle a little bit if Khalil Shakir is out for Buffalo. Keep that in mind. But I don't hate the -1 Vegas line telling me who's going to win this. I think it's a pretty even matchup. And heading to the 5th game here, another couple teams in the AFC South here. Indianapolis heading into Jacksonville. Surprisingly, perhaps, Jacksonville at 0-4 are the 3-point home favorites. It's a 46 Vegas game total, still pretty healthy there. That gives Jacksonville a 24.5 team implied total. Indianapolis 21.5. Not sure what's going on here. That's the 5th best team implied total for Jacksonville at 24.5. Indianapolis at 13th. Jacksonville has otherwise struggled, so maybe we can see something from the adjusted line play report when we get there. In terms of Indy's offensive pass protection, number 18, offensive pass DVOA, number 14, Jacksonville 28th and 32nd. Not very good here. Depending on who's quarterbacking, if it's Anthony Richardson, I do like Josh Downs having a successful week. If it's going to be Flacco, I think Pittman and Downs are both viable against a defense like this. Pittman, I don't think is necessarily the favorite target of Anthony Richardson, but he finally did come to life in the very beginning of last week, so it's possible that he does well here against Jacksonville. And in terms of run blocking, Indianapolis 17, Jacksonville 8. Got to watch out for the Jonathan Taylor injury. He might not play in this. Trey Sermon hasn't really showed anything, and this is telling me he's not going to be as successful as you would hope against a Jacksonville defense based off of this. Probably going to be getting stuffed at the line a little bit. And then the run DVOA number 8, Jacksonville 11. That's pretty even up. Jonathan Taylor can overcome that. Trey Sermon probably going to struggle. Now on the Jacksonville side, number 31 in offensive pass protection, Indianapolis number 19. And then Jacksonville 24 in the offensive pass DVOA, Indianapolis number 18. So not a very good situation here for Jacksonville. They're red in both categories, but fortunately, Indianapolis kind of below average in both of these. It's in the favor of Indianapolis's defense, but Jacksonville may find the pass game slightly easier against this Indianapolis team than they otherwise have been playing in the beginning of the season. Now, the run blocking is where it gets interesting. Jacksonville number 7 in run blocking, Indianapolis 24 in stopping the run. Jacksonville 12 in run DVOA, Indianapolis 15 in run DVOA. This is telling me Jacksonville may be pretty successful on the ground. If they're going to be moving the ball, it's probably going to be via the ground. We did see Travis Etienne, with some sort of shoulder injury, I believe. He's expected to play, but if he doesn't, Tank Bigsby, I think, is a decent candidate for DFS this week. We've seen him rip off and be really successful running the ball. And then we got 2 fast-paced teams here. Indianapolis, number 2 and number 1. Jacksonville, both top 5, number 4 and number 5 in neutral situations. So this could end up being a shootout. Indianapolis should be pretty good passing the ball. There'll be a little bit of a struggle maybe running the ball. And then Jacksonville, maybe a little bit more successful passing than they otherwise have been. And then that run game could actually get off to a pretty decent start. So could be an interesting one here. I don't know about Jacksonville necessarily being the favorites in this. I'm actually going to go ahead and let's say, yep. We're going to do that. I think we are going, oops, sorry, wrong one. There we go. We're going to have that upset, that purge alarm. I think Indianapolis is going to go into Jacksonville based off of this and upset them. Only chance is Jacksonville gets up early and then they're able to run the ball out. But I think this is one that Indianapolis can take from Jacksonville, sending them to 0-5 and really putting the coach there, Doug Peterson, on the hot seat. He might go after this game depending on what it looks like. If it's a big blowout, Indianapolis wins, 42-10. That might be the last game for him, and then you see somebody else as an interim coach the rest of the way. If it's close, he can buy himself some more time. But I think Indianapolis goes into Jacksonville and wins this. If you're a betting person, I can't guarantee it, but I would place a bet on it with my own. All right, and perhaps a little bit weird, we have Sunday Night Football on the main slate, so we're going to include it here in our main slate for FanDuel. Just know that Sunday Night Football, we're going to kind of treat it as also an island game matchup, which it will be on DraftKings for anybody that does those one-game slates. But Dallas heading into Pittsburgh 2.5-point home favorites. It's a 44 Vegas game total, 6th best on the main slate for FanDuel. Gives Pittsburgh a 23.25 team implied total, 7th best on the slate. I believe that's tied for 7th best. And then Dallas at 20.75 for their team implied total, 15th best on the main slate. Dallas offensive pass protection number 25, Pittsburgh number 9 in the pass rush. I would expect Pittsburgh to be able to apply some pressure to Dallas here and need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. That's going to benefit Lamb. That's going to benefit Ferguson and a few targets to the running backs, but really Lamb and Ferguson. So those island game matchups, those two definitely in play. Pass DVOA, Pittsburgh 14, Dallas 20. Nothing really to glean there other than studs can overcome some of these closer matchups. And I'm pretty certain that CeeDee Lamb is a stud, so keep that in mind. In terms of running the ball, Dallas not very good, number 31 in run blocking, Pittsburgh number 2. That's almost as big of a separation as you can get. They should get stuffed at the line early and often in this matchup. Run DVOA, Pittsburgh number 3, Dallas 14. Don't expect a good run game from any of these players on the Dallas side. If they're going to move the ball, it's going to be via the air, and it's probably going to be the CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson show this week. Pittsburgh side, number 6 in offensive pass protection, Dallas 15. Pittsburgh number 8 in offensive pass protection, Dallas number 21. very good for their pass game. Let's swing quick to the run blocking side. Number 2 in run blocking, Dallas 32. Pittsburgh, number 2 in offensive run DVOA, Dallas, number 32. Pittsburgh's offense should really dominate this Dallas defense. These numbers, they're not looking good, and Dallas's front people that were studs are all injured. They got a lot of injuries there on the Dallas main line, so I fully expect Pittsburgh to take advantage of that, be very effective in the offense. So big plays to George Pickens, I think, are going to happen in this particular matchup. If they got time to throw, Calvin Austin's in play too for those island game matchups. He's somebody worth looking into. And then the run blocking side, I don't know if Jaylen Warren's going to play or not, but Najee Harris looks like he's in a smash spot. He was last week as well, but this is really looking like a good spot for him to perform well, especially if Pittsburgh's moving the ball on the pass side too. We could see him with some scoring opportunities and plunging it into the end zone. Keep that in mind. If Jaylen Warren doesn't go and we see Cordero Patterson healthy heading into this particular game, I wouldn't mind him in some DFS lineups as well. He's going to be a little bit lesser rostered and could win you some tournaments. And then we have 2 games actually tied for 7th best on the slate at 43.5 for their Vegas game total. First one here, Seattle in the Giants, and then the other one will be Cleveland, Washington. So Giants heading into Seattle. There's 6.5-point road underdogs, so Seattle favored by 6.5 at home. With that Vegas game total of 43.5, that gives Seattle a 25 team implied total, 4th best on the slate. Giants, 18.5 team implied total, number 18 on the slate. I believe that's out of 22 teams, so we're getting down there pretty low. Giants, actually number 2 in offensive pass protection. We haven't been seeing Daniel Jones take a ton of sacks in situations that he shouldn't be taking sacks in, so keep that in mind. Seattle, though, number 10 in defensive pass rush. Giants might be under some duress here and need to get the ball out quick. That's going to favor Wan'Dale Robinson and the running backs. Keep that in mind. And Neighbors always in play, but it looks like Neighbors didn't practice on Wednesday. He had a concussion, and I believe they played Thursday night last week and got a concussion at the end of that game. The fact that he's not practicing yet on Wednesday is not a very good sign, but still got a couple days to go through that concussion protocol. So keep an eye out for that, what happens. This is a Sunday 3 o'clock or 3 o'clock Central game, so if you really need to pay attention to that. If it's not looking good, if he doesn't practice Friday or Saturday, it's pretty much I would try to find somebody else to start and not risk it for that late game, or have somebody in the waiting, like a Slayton that you can pick off the waivers to start in a matchup like this. Getting into the run blocking side, Giants 21 in run blocking, Seattle number 10. Seattle's defense actually green across the board here. Giants number 30 in offensive run DVOA, Seattle 7. I'd expect the run game to struggle in this particular matchup. It looks like the pass game will struggle as well and need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. And especially if they don't have Malik Neighbors in this, I don't think the Giants score 18.5 points. I don't think they even score 13 points in a matchup like that. I would bet the under on this right now if I could. Even if Neighbors is in there, I think they're going to struggle a little bit to get to that 19. On the Seattle side, number 7 in offensive pass protection. The Giants actually number 2 in defensive pass rush. They got a pretty good system there to get after the quarterback. Defensive pass DVOA, though, Giants 24. Seattle number 9 in offensive pass DVOA. And we actually saw Seattle green across the board for defense. They're green across the board for offense as well. So a pretty solid team here on both sides of the ball. With this being said, Seattle should be very explosive, but need to get the ball out perhaps a little bit quicker than they're used to. Noah Fant and I think Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba would be the bigger beneficiaries here. Might see DK Metcalf with a little bit of a worse game than you'd otherwise expect in a matchup against the bad defense like the Giants. Run blocking, though, we just saw Kenneth Walker dominate the Lions in a matchup where he really should not have been doing very well. This is a situation where he should do well. He's number 10 for Seattle in offensive run blocking. Giants number 18. And then number 5 in run DVOA for Seattle, number 14 for the Giants. So it looks like Seattle should be humming in this particular one. Maybe a little dink and dunky with the passes in this matchup as they try to get the ball out quicker, but run game should be good. Pass game should be explosive, even if it is underneath. And Seattle plays very quick pace of play, 5-3. Even when they're leading, they're in the top half. So keep that in mind. They may put the pedal to the metal. 6.5 Vegas line. I feel very confident that Seattle will cover the 6.5 points. So if I could bet on that, I would bet $1 that Seattle covers this 6.5 points at home against a Giants team, which probably won't have Malik Neighbors coming into it. And you'll see if Malik Neighbors doesn't practice Friday or Saturday, by the time Sunday comes around, this Vegas line might drop. We might see Seattle stay at that 25. We might see the Giants bump down even to 15, 16 for their point total, and this Vegas line really swing in Seattle's favor. And that other number 7 game on the main slate is Cleveland heading into Washington. We have Washington as 3-point home favorites. Again, that Vegas game total, 43.5 points. Washington, 23.25 team implied total. Cleveland, 20.25. Washington, 7th best on the main slate. Cleveland, number 16 on the main slate. Cleveland, number 14 in offensive pass protection. Washington, 30th in pass rushing. So expect Deshaun Watson to have some time in this particular matchup. They are the stone worst in offensive pass DVOA at 32, but Washington number 30 in the defensive pass DVOA. Suggestive that even though Cleveland has really struggled, they're probably going to have time to throw the ball, and they're actually going to probably be a lot more effective in their pass game than they otherwise have been so far this season. I think Jerry Jeudy's in play, and I think we do have Mr. Cooper over there who's also in play in a matchup like this, where they have a little bit more time to throw the ball. And then the run blocking side, Cleveland number 8 in run blocking on offense, Washington 22nd. And then run DVOA, Cleveland 23rd, Washington 28th. I think James Ford also in play. Jerome Ford. James Ford is from the Lost show as Sawyer. Jerome Ford from Cleveland should also be a solid play in this particular week. I think you can play a lot of these Cleveland players. 20.25 team implied total seems a little low based off of this. I wouldn't be shocked to see them score 24, 27, 28 in this particular matchup. Washington, number 21 in offensive pass protection. Cleveland, 14 in the pass rush. Slightly in the favor of Cleveland there. Nothing to write home about, though. Washington, very explosive. Number 4 in offensive pass DVOA. Cleveland, middle of the pack at 16. Indicative that Washington should be able to pass the ball fairly effectively against this Cleveland defense. And the run blocking side is kind of flip-flop. We have 2 red-green matchups, but not on the same side. Defensive run stopping, Cleveland number 9, Washington 27 in the run blocking. Really, the run blocking aspect and the run stopping is how well they are at preventing certain ranges of outcomes. So if the defense is stopping them behind the line, it's very bad for the offensive line, very good for the defensive line. And that's kind of what this is showing here. Washington probably gets stopped at the line of scrimmage or less quite often. Cleveland stopping people at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage frequently. But then this run DVOA is based off of situation. So defensive adjusted value over average. How are they doing compared to other teams in those same scenarios? Well, Washington's actually number 4 in terms of the outcomes that they're having in those situations. Cleveland number 24. So kind of indicative that Washington, even though they might have some plays where they get stuffed at the line of scrimmage often, they still could end up with some explosive plays here, dipping into the end zone a few times in this particular matchup. But it does look like their offense is going to struggle maybe somewhat on a play-by-play basis, maybe a little bit under pressure, a lot of dead drives, but then you're probably going to see a lot of explosive plays at some point that kind of crank them down the field in 1 or 2 plays. So it's going to be a weird one. In situations like this, too, I actually don't hate the kicker for Washington. Kicking a bunch of field goals. Siebert, we kind of called him out last week as a good play, and he had a great week. But Washington does play slow, keep that in mind. But they could be super explosive, but on a play-by-play basis, be a little bit frustrating. So don't be shocked if you see them get down a little bit and then have some explosive plays, catch back up, something like that. I wouldn't mind hitting the upset alert in this. I'm not entirely sure if Washington's going to be able to be that effective on offense, and it does look like Cleveland's going to be a little bit better than they otherwise are on offense in this matchup. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Cleveland win this. I'm not going to put the upset alert necessarily, but again, I think it is certainly possible here that Cleveland wins this. All right, getting into some of the more ugly matchups. Number 9 on the slate, we have Carolina heading into Chicago. Chicago 4-point home favorites, 41-point Vegas game total, giving Chicago a 22.5 team implied total. Good for 12th on the slate. Carolina at 18.5 is 18th on the slate. Carolina offensive pass protection, number 29. Offensive pass DVOA, number 27, both red. Chicago, number 22 in defensive pass rush, but number 4 in defensive pass DVOA. I wouldn't expect Carolina to be super explosive here in the pass game. It's probably going to be a little bit of a struggle or dink and dunk. It's probably going to favor Deontay Johnson quite a bit in a matchup like this. In the run blocking, Carolina 29, Chicago 14th in stopping the run, and then Carolina 20th in run DVOA, Chicago number 30. You might see that be more of the higher variability where play-by-play, you get a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage or maybe loss of yardage, but then you'll get an 8 to 10 yard run that gets popped off randomly where they're a little bit more successful in those particular scenarios. Chuba Hubbard as well, if Carolina's going to be under a little bit of duress and not be, kind of dink and dunking, he might see himself with some targets in this as well. But yeah, it doesn't look like Carolina is going to be super great against this Chicago defense. Not particularly great. The run game over here looks to be the best in terms of run DVOA. Pass DVOA very bad, but Carolina might have a little bit more time than they're used to pass the ball. Chicago side, number 20 in offensive pass protection. Carolina 24th. As you can see, Carolina red across the board on defense here. Chicago 28th in offensive pass DVOA. They've truly been bad. Carolina 23rd. This might be a scenario. I know I've said it quite a bit the recent weeks, but we might see Caleb Williams and the Chicago offense have a good game in this. They're playing a bad defense. They might otherwise be more successful than you've seen them throughout the rest of the season against this Carolina defense, which is good, obviously, for Caleb Williams and those pass catchers over there. In terms of the run game, it looks pretty good for Chicago. Number 20 in offensive run blocking. Carolina 29th in stopping the run. And then Chicago 29th in run DVOA. Carolina number 25. Swift could come in and have another solid game against Carolina. Don't be shocked if he does actually end up as a slate breaker and one of those guys that, man, I didn't have anyone on this Carolina-Chicago game. I thought it was going to be a bad game. And then Swift comes out and he has 157 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game like this. I think that's entirely within his range of outcomes, even though they're not necessarily a great team. We haven't seen him be awesome outside of last week, but he could do it again against this Carolina defense, and especially if the Chicago offense is performing a little bit better, we might see him with some more scoring opportunities. And both teams actually play relatively quick. Chicago top 5 in both of these, offensive pace of play overall and offensive neutral situation pace of play. And Carolina 8 and 14 in those scenarios. Again, getting into the double digits here, the ugly games. Miami heading into New England. Depending on the platform that you're betting on, some have Miami favored, some have New England favored. More of them have New England favored than Miami, but some of them that favor Miami is by 1.5. The most of them with New England's a half. Some of them. So I just put it in here as an even up, really, for the Vegas line. It's a pick 'em. It's a 36.5 Vegas game total, which is absolutely gross. Giving both teams an 18.25 team implied total, which is tied for 20th on the slate. And that's out of 22 teams. So you can imagine there's no 21. There's only one team worse than these two on the entire slate. So offensive pass protection for Miami, number 12 and number 30 in pass DVOA. New England 21 in defensive pass rush, 28th in pass DVOA. Miami might have a little bit of time to throw the ball, and they might otherwise be more successful in this pass game than you've seen otherwise to this point. Tyreek Hill may surprise, Jalen Waddle may surprise in this, but unless I get some improved quarterback play, probably not going to be an excellent matchup here. Run blocking, Miami 24, run DVOA 32, New England 20th in run stopping, 18th in run DVOA. Slightly in the favor of New England's defense. I'd expect Miami, if they're going to move the ball, to be in the air actually in this. Achane could certainly get involved in the pass attack, but really I think that run game is one to avoid here against New England. But yeah, looking gross, not a game that we're going to want a ton of exposure to. New England side, 24th in offensive pass protection. Miami 16th in pass rush. A little bit in the favor of Miami there. And then New England 31 in offensive pass DVOA. Miami 22nd in defensive pass DVOA. Slightly in the favor of Miami, or pretty decently in the favor of Miami. I wouldn't expect New England to be very good passing the ball in this. And then run blocking, number 16 for New England. Miami 25th. Miami 26th, and run DVOA, New England 27th. So slightly in the favor in terms of being positive yardage on a play-by-play basis for New England. We did hear reports that we could have Gibson starting in this matchup against Miami. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be playing him in DFS, but if you got some bye week fill-ins that you need, he is certainly viable, especially if New England's going to need to get the ball out quick. He is an excellent pass catcher out of the backfield. Wouldn't be shocked to see him have a decent enough starting, flex play in your need for the bye week fill in. So gross, but I think he's truly viable in leagues that are a little bit deeper, 12, 14 team leagues with those bye weeks coming up. All right, and then worst game on the main slate, we have Vegas heading into Denver, and then we just have Monday Night Football after that. So Vegas heading into Denver. Denver 3-point home favorites, 35.5 Vegas game total here. Absolutely disgusting, right? So not good. Denver 19.25 team implied total. They are the favorites and 17th best out of 22 teams for their team implied total. Las Vegas worst one on the slate at 16.25. Not going to be looking good for them based off of what we see up here. Red green for Las Vegas in the offensive pass metrics versus the defensive pass metrics. Number 27 and 25 for Vegas. Number 4 and number 10 for Denver. They should be absolutely dominant in that category. I expect a lot of sacks. I expect some interceptions here, especially if Vegas needs to get the ball out quick. No Devontae Adams. Fortunately for them, they have Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, who are more underneath specialists. I think they can combat that a little bit when they do get the ball out. But I wouldn't be shocked to see who's ever behind center there. It's going to be Minshew if he's struggling. Might see Aiden O'Connell come in there. But expect them to be under pressure. I'd expect Denver to be able to shut down that pass game pretty well. My favorite, I guess, out of that would probably be Bowers, as he's even more underneath, I think, than Jacoby Myers. In terms of run blocking, Vegas number 15, Denver 19, slightly in the favor of Vegas here, which basically just means they'll get a little bit more positive yardage than negative yardage in their carries. But really, they've been really bad. Number 31 in run DVOA, Denver number 5. I would not expect Vegas to be very good at all in offense in this. DVOA is bad there. It's really bad for the pass game. Just going to be a bad game in general. And avoid unless you have Denver's defense. Certainly pick them up and stream them if your league mates are sleeping. I think Denver's defense in play here very much. Denver's offense, number 3 in pass protection. Not getting sacked a lot because they get the ball out so quick, and they design stuff to make sure that he doesn't get sacked or is rolling out of the pocket, whatever. Bo Nix, not very good, it seems like, but they do a good job of trying to get the ball out of his hands or get him on the run to avoid those sacks. And fortunately for them, Vegas not very good at getting after the quarterback at number 27. So Denver might find themselves with a little bit more time to pass. Sutton's really been the only viable pass-catching option here in Denver. He could have a very solid game against Las Vegas here, especially if Denver's got the ball a lot against Vegas's offense here. We could see Courtland Sutton with a decent matchup in this particular game. And then the run game, kind of neutral. Denver 12 versus Vegas on defense 21, slightly in the favor of Denver. Offensive run DVOA, Denver bad at 28, Vegas 23rd. Nothing really to write home about. Javonte Williams, probably the biggest beneficiary here, as he's probably going to get the most volume, especially if Denver's winning. I expect them to be winning. Cortland Sutton would be the only person I'd be interested in DFS. I could see him, finishing with 80 yards and a touchdown in this if he's cheap. But otherwise, I don't even expect him to be cheap because he's really their only option in the pass game there. So keep that in mind. I think Denver wins this one, and Vegas not going to be good. And last but not least, we have the Saints heading into Kansas City. Chiefs Kingdom, 43 Vegas game total on Monday Night Football. Gives Kansas City a 24.25 team implied total. New Orleans at 18.75. Getting into the New Orleans side, they're number 17 in offensive pass protection. Kansas City 25th in defensive pass rush. So they haven't been getting a ton of sacks here. New Orleans might have some time to throw the ball, which is going to be good for Olave and Shaheed, both there. And Kansas City actually been getting obliterated by tight ends, so we could see like a Juwan Johnson or Foster Moreau get involved and be a little bit more successful. I don't know about Taysom Hill coming back. He was injured, but could see those tight ends with some success here against Kansas City. Pass DVOA, New Orleans actually top 10, number 7, Kansas City 19th. Again, suggestive that New Orleans could have a pretty solid game here in the pass game. And then the run blocking side, New Orleans number 18, Kansas City number 11. That's in the favor of Kansas City's defense. New Orleans number 7 in run DVOA, Kansas City number 2. This is telling me New Orleans is going to struggle to run the ball. New Orleans should be decent enough in the pass game. Blake Groupie is an option for the rocket ship emoji in terms of New Orleans probably can move the ball into field goal range, but they might struggle to really get going when they have to rely on some run game options there. And then their drive stall out. So Blake Groupie probably already picked up considering the start that New Orleans had. But he's certainly a guy that I'm fine betting the over 1.5 field goal attempts or field goals made in this particular matchup. I think he could be in line for a solid game there. Kansas City side, number 23 in offensive pass protection. New Orleans, number 12. Tell me Patrick Mahomes might be under some pressure in this matchup. New Orleans, number 3 in defensive DVOA on the pass side. Kansas City, 13th. That's also in the favor of New Orleans. I'd expect Kansas City's pass game to struggle. They're not going to have Rice. They're probably going to need to keep stuff underneath, which is going to benefit Juju Smith-Schuster. Very deep dive there. If you want probably a Stone Cold Min person on DraftKings, he is an option who might see 5 or 6 pass attempts in this particular matchup. But otherwise, I think Kelsey is going to be one to eat against this New Orleans defense in this type of matchup. And then the run game, Kansas City number 6 in run blocking, and New Orleans number 13 in stopping the run. Slight favor there for Kansas City. Run DVOA very close. New Orleans 8 on defense, Kansas City 11 on offense. Nothing to write home about. Does seem like Kareem Hunt kind of took over the backfield here for Kansas City. That probably continues in a matchup like this where New Orleans is maybe moving the ball successfully, getting into some scoring range opportunities. They might be kicking field goals, but if they can score a long one with Shaheed, they can certainly put up some points in a hurry, especially if Kansas City's pass game is more dink and dunk and struggling a little bit. We could see Hunt get involved in that aspect as well. New Orleans might cover this 5.5 Vegas game total. Kansas City might struggle a little bit without Rashee Rice there. No Hollywood Brown. Relying on a bunch of relative scrubs from here on out for the rest of the season. I think Kansas City struggles a little bit in this. We'll see Kelsey and probably Kareem Hunt with the best games in this particular matchup, and then New Orleans pass game as well. So if that's how you want it to attack this particular matchup in an island game, I think you're going to be successful. And getting those kickers, getting those guys involved, I think would be not a bad option in this. Could be one of those double kicker weeks for the DFS island game slates. All right, that's going to do it for the Week 5 Adjusted Line Play Report. Hopefully you learned a little bit And you can make those start-sit decisions, prop bets, and DFS lineups super great this week. That's the whole point of doing this. Again, I record this Thursday night, right around halftime of Thursday Night Football. I'll give you those stats. Hopefully you found this information useful and go out there and win some money. That's really what I'm here for, to make your lives easier and to make you guys some money. So I hope that's what happens. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. Like this video, share it to all your buddies and friends who want to also win money. That's what we're here for, folks. Have a good one. Peace.